And then I got my master's in black bear and polar bear human conflict. Bear spray is so great. It's like it uncomplicates it. And grab his back legs and pull him out from under him.
Whoa,
in his shoulder.
350 Wow, that's baller.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Seager Storytime. We're your hosts, Mattson, Case, and Elliott, and we're the co-founders of Seager Company.
Tech stuff. Well, thanks for coming, Wes.
Yeah.
Do you go by Wes? You go by Driz?
Wes.
By Kid? Driz the Kid?
All of the above.
Kid. Where did you get that nickname? That's probably a stupid question, but...
So I grew up in Missoula, Montana, and for me, like the University of Montana is the school there, and their mascot are the Grizz, like the Montana Grizzlies. And so I was like a big Montana Grizzlies fan.
Okay.
And
Nice.
so in like
What
when
sport?
Instagram came out in football,
Nice.
I like picked the name Grizz Kid, and then
Sick.
I like started working with Bears the year after. So
Oh,
it just,
wow.
like, worked.
Dang.
Yeah.
It wasn't even
Jeez.
as obvious as you thought it
Yeah,
would be.
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I always loved Bears, but it was like, oh yeah, sure, this will work.
I mean, there's plenty of them up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I wonder at what point you have to change it to like
Grizz man.
adult.
Grizz Man? That's probably already
Never,
taken.
dude.
Grizz Man? I feel like that.
Probably.
What was that one? There was
They're
that
like
movie.
60 still with Grizz Kid.
Wait,
What was that movie? Grizzly something? Where the
Grizzly
guy-
Man?
Is it Grizzly Man?
Yeah.
There you
the
go.
Timothy Treadwell
Yeah.
documentary.
Cocaine
Didn't
Bear?
end great. Didn't end
Oh,
great.
yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet, but that's we could probably talk about that.
Yeah.
We could talk about
That's
it for a
gnarly.
while.
If you would like to start just explaining like how you get into like how old are you, I guess?
I am 39.
Okay. So
Yeah.
as a 39-year-old, like how do
Yeah.
you become a bear biologist?
Yeah, so I was kind of a late start for me. I like grew up in Montana, was obsessed with bears, obsessed with wildlife. Like a lot of little kids, like really into dinosaurs, then got really into animals. And then it just never really died for me. That was just like an obsession that I carried. But then when I went to college, I thought I needed to do something that was going to make me a lot of money. So I went into like pre-med and was going to be an optometrist, and graduated, got into some optometry schools, shadowed an optometrist, and just like hated it. It was the worst.
Wow.
Classic.
And it was a family friend, and
see
he
that
was
coming.
like, you shouldn't do this. This isn't going to make you happy at all. And so I,
Good advice, though.
it was. And so I kind of took a step back and was like, you know what? I've never really cared too much about making a ton of money. I really just want to do something that makes me happy. I don't love working. So like for me, it was like, I want to do something where it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm working. And so I started meeting with professors and asking them about wildlife jobs. And because I hadn't done wildlife as an undergrad, it was just like a lot of no's. Everyone was kind of shutting their doors in my faces.
Jeez.
And I found this professor in Utah who's working with bears, and I really wanted to work for him because I was based out of Utah at the time. And just went in like every other week and bugged him, and he would just like, we'd just talk and he'd tell me stories. And truly for like a year and a half, I'd just go to his office like every other week. And then finally he hired me as a tech on his polar bear project.
Damn.
So like a tech is just someone that's kind of like helping out, like kind of
Assistant kind of.
yeah, just like an assistant that does whatever. And then after I, like, quote unquote, proved myself as a tech, he took me on as a master's student. And then I got my master's in both black bear and polar bear human conflict. So,
Whoa.
yeah.
Wow, it's very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is super cool.
What does that
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
So,
conflict?
like,
Thinking
human,
like Narnia, you know what I mean?
yeah, it's like
where my
you're
head
fighting
went.
the white witch.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
riding polar bears. No, human conflict is just like any kind of, it's pretty much just looking at like the interface between the animal and humanity. So like with bears, anytime the species are mixing with humans, there's bound to be conflict. There, you know, and conflict can range from like a bear that's eating trash out of a dumpster to a bear that, you know, mauled someone and killed them.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a wide range of different things.
Yeah.
But
Are you basically like studying crime scenes?
Uh,
Bear crime scenes?
Forensics?
I have yet to like study like a mauling scene in person.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did a couple seasons in Yellowstone, and I was kind of like, fingers crossed someone gets mauled this year,
Oh, gnarly.
because we do respond to those. But I wasn't.
So like seasons in Yellowstone, you're not talking about the show, obviously. You're
No,
talking
no,
about
no,
the park.
not yeah.
And
In Yellowstone
working
Park.
at the park like full time.
Yeah, on their bear team.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, and we can get into that too. But my projects looked at like the polar bear project was like how they were interacting with oil industry. So it was like on the oil field in northern Alaska, and it was looking at whether or not like oil industry was disturbing, denning female polar bears that were having their cubs. And then the black bear project was in Bryce Canyon National Park, and it was looking at a bear had like broken into someone's tent and swatted a lady.
Swatted her?
Yeah, just like
Damn.
Just for fun?
yeah, just
Bitch
kind of
slapped
like
her?
I think it broke in there and didn't realize a person was in there and it got
panic
scared
swapped. Damn.
and swatted her. And
What
so
a weird move.
yeah, I mean that's
Better
it's
that than
pretty
a mouth.
typical. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ran away after that.
Yeah, and just ran away.
And she was fine.
She was fine, but she
That
thought
would hurt
she was
so
like,
bad.
yeah, she was like, oh, it was a 300-pound bear, and then we caught the bear, and it was like a 70-pound.
Oh, really? A
Yeah.
little cub?
That's classic.
But Bryce had been having kind of a spate of interactions that had like culminated in that one, and so they wanted to do a study looking at what was bringing bears into campsites. And so I went in and like analyzed every single campsite in their park for like things that might be attractive to bears, and then I collared a bunch of bears and looked at the different resources they were using.
How do you call it? You have to just dart it?
You can't. That's the fun part. Is we had these culvert traps, so they're like a big. It's kind of like two 55-gallon drums welded together.
Okay.
And you bait them, and that was the worst part of the entire project because we used like horse meat that had been sitting in a barrel for like weeks in the sun.
wow.
So it's just like full of maggots and just
Gnarly.
like foamy and disgusting.
And they like that?
They like the smell, so I'd cut it and chuck it in the back of the trap.
Wow.
And then hanging from the trigger, we'd have like some tastier stuff.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Yeah, it's
don't
less
bake
maggots.
in.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
Yeah, and so they would smell the rotten meat. They'd go in the trap, and then there's a trigger, and they pull on the little bag that has the better stuff in it, and it triggers a door to fall.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I show up, and I have what's called a jab stick, which is essentially a pole with the syringe on it, and I poke the bear.
That's kind of like a shark deal. I feel like they do something similar.
Boomstick.
don't they?
Yeah.
Boomstick?
Does that take like multiple
Yeah.
tries because they're like swatting it away and stuff?
You know, it's an art. Like you get
Yeah.
better at it. My little brother was my tech on that project, and I would generally have him on one end of the trap distracting the bear, and then it would turn around. I had like a little trap door I could open, and then I would just poke it in the butt when it was focused on him.
The fact that the bears are attracted to the rotting meat, does that mean that bears are like kind of scavengers or like bottom feeders in a sense?
I mean, they're just opportunistic.
Okay.
So they'll take whatever they can get. But for them, especially these black bears this is like in the desert of Utah, so they don't have really great food sources. For them, like a dead animal is like a great protein source.
Yeah.
And so they don't turn that down.
Gotcha.
And that's some bear safety. Like if you're ever out hiking around, especially in grizzly country, and you stumble on a carcass of an animal, you want to get out of there
Okay.
as quickly as possible because that will draw every bear in that area to
Interesting.
that area.
We've heard that bear spray is better than having like a gun on you in certain areas.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
in
that
all
always
areas, in my
really?
opinion. Yeah.
There's just one
Crazy.
area that it's not.
I just, yeah.
Gotta have a bazooka there.
It's like highly debated because it's a gun issue.
Yeah.
And like people love their guns. Like I hunt, I do things with guns. I'm not anti-gun by any means, but like you don't understand what happens to you when you have 600 pounds of grizzly bear charging you.
Yeah.
Like it's
Freeze up.
impossible to like say I'll be able to act appropriately and like raise my gun and be cool enough to like shoot it in the exact right spot. And so with the gun, you really need to have that kind of focus and control. And with bear spray, it literally puts a cloud of bear spray in front
Can't
of
miss.
you. And so all you have to do is get that wall of bear spray in between you and the bear, and it's going to run into it. And
Crazy.
for them, like they're navigating the world through a lot of different senses, but their nose is one of their main senses. And like sucking that powder or that pepper into their nose, it just shuts off the lights for them. It's like suddenly they can't smell, they can't see, they can't do anything. And for an animal, that's really scary. Like they've never experienced anything like that, and they just want to get out of there. It's incredibly effective.
So have you ever
insane.
used it?
I've used it on accident once.
Okay. I've done that too.
yeah.
Not for bear spray, but pepper spray when I found it in my mom's purse.
Just right in the face. You're like,
I didn't know what it was. And I was in the kitchen, or in the bathroom, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You know, it's
Jeez.
terrible, yeah.
I've had it out a number of times, like ready to go. Last year, there's a black bear in Yellowstone that was like, had it taken one more step toward me, I definitely would have sprayed it.
Yeah.
And then with grizzlies, a number of times I've been like ready, but I've luckily have never had to spray a bear.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, how fast are they when they're charging? Sorry.
Really fast. Like the thing, I think the best way to describe like a bear charge is explosive. I mean,
And they're not like straight, right? Don't they go like
sometimes,
sides?
usually it's pretty straight though. It's like pretty direct.
Serpentine pattern.
They kind of go right at you, and then
He like jukes you.
Yeah.
What's
Little
the
jump slap.
What's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie?
the Revenant.
The Revenant.
Yeah.
Knock your head clean off.
Gnarly scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
was
pretty.
gnarly.
That's a
Yeah.
pretty true to form like bear attack too.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
on on the podcast that I host on Tooth and Claw, we talk about attacks. Like that's kind of the main purpose of the podcast, and
Oh wow.
looking at why those animals initiate those attacks and like why usually the person is doing something wrong. And the Revenant scene's like actually a really good case study.
Really?
For like, because if you remember, he's out hunting and he's like, first of all, sneaking around all quiet, which if you're in grizzly country, that's a bad thing to
You want
do.
to be loud.
Yeah, you want to like let a bear know you're coming, especially a bear with cubs. Surprises a bear with cubs, and she hits him just to like neutralize him. Like that bear's not trying to eat him. She's not trying to like kill him necessarily. She just wants to neutralize that threat so she can get out of there with her cubs. And like a black bear will just send her cubs up a tree, but a grizzly bear doesn't have that option. So she's just like, I'm gonna knock this thing down.
damn.
Why doesn't she have that option?
They don't climb like
Oh,
black
really?
bears do.
They
They
can't?
can,
Oh,
but they're
okay.
not. It's not like straight out of the den. They're climbing like black bears.
What's the biological reasoning there?
So grizzlies like evolved on the plains, and they evolved to dig. They're like a digging bear, and that's why they have really long, straight claws and the hump and everything. Black bears evolved more in the forest, and they're climbing bears. So
That makes
Cool.
sense.
well, and the thing is, when you sorry, we're getting on all sorts of, but I
No,
love
we're
talking
here.
bears.
Yeah, we're
the thing
here.
about that is like if you evolve to dig and not climb, you're giving up this really good escape option.
Yeah.
So you're no longer like getting up a tree to get away from something. So you have to evolve a different option for
Get
like
gnarlier.
dealing with the threat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that option for them is just like, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm going to fight. And that's what a
man.
grizzly does.
Damn.
And so like knocking down that threat is often what they do. And usually that's what it is. That's all they're trying to do is just neutralize you. But for like a soft pink human, that can be totally devastating. Like even just a few seconds of like a grizzly attacking you can be enough.
Jeez.
And so like with Hugh Glass, in the movie at least, he gets neutralized and then he reaches for his gun and she's like, oh, it's not done.
Yeah.
So she goes back
Oh,
and does it
jeez.
again. And that again is like a typical kind of thing. Like if you're dumb enough to be in grizzly country
Just
without
play
a
dead.
deterrent and you don't have the option to spray the bear and stop it before you get mauled, that's why they say to play dead if it's actually mauling you.
That's so hard to do. I feel like though.
It is, yeah. But
hard
it's just
scenario.
trying to make sure that you're no longer a threat.
Yeah.
You have to convince it you're no longer a threat.
Jeez.
But I'm a big proponent of never getting to that point.
Yeah.
Like having bear spray so you can avoid having to make that decision of like, I hope this thing doesn't want to eat me. Because if it
Jeez.
does, then you're just kind of fucked.
I've
So
heard.
here's
Oh, I got one quick
Crazy.
one here, just while we're on that subject with the Revenant. This kid, and
Yeah, go
pardon me for lack of better verbiage here, but I heard that bears, if they're gonna eat you from the butthole first.
It's not.
that true?
It's not necessarily true. But
You've said that for years.
I know. I heard
Sorry.
it once, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
He's
that
Told a
sounds
lot
right.
of people that.
It sounds
still a
right.
good story. It's
Well, I
still a
always
good
said
story.
I don't know for sure, but I heard.
It's not necessarily true, but what they do, like a big cat will dispatch its prey. So like if you get killed by a mountain lion or something,
It'll be quick, right?
it's gonna like sever your vertebrae with its teeth, or it's gonna bite your windpipe.
I would prefer that. Yeah.
And it's trying to kill you quickly so that it can drag you somewhere and eat you where it's not going to have to compete with other animals. A grizzly bear or even a black bear, they literally will just sit on you and eat you. And they're going to eat the fleshy, soft stuff first.
Oh.
Gosh.
And so a lot of people that
but
do get
right?
yeah.
So the butt's got all the fat. Yeah.
So you're not necessarily off. Like it could happen that way, but
You just have to be like in
Feel
the
like
right
that's
position.
Yeah.
Why is he not eating my ass?
Yeah, you roll over. You're like,
Come on.
this is the one thing I was looking for. No, but like it's probably the worst way to go. I can't think of, because a lot of these people truly just bleed out. Like it's 10 to 15 minutes
Gnarly.
of a bear just literally sitting on you and slowly eating you.
That is so gnarly. to
and
think.
you're alive through it. So it's not, and that's rare. I mean, it's super rare that there's a study from I think like 1900 to 2011 that looked at fatal black bear attacks. Because when a black bear attacks a person, it's almost always predatory. And there's only been like 70 in that long
Wow.
time range. So it's just, it doesn't have, and there's 800,000 black bears. So it's like not a common
Those
thing
are
at
just
all.
any attack, not deaths. Like just
Those
any.
are fatal. Those are
fatal.
fatal black bear attacks.
But there's like bitch slaps every once in a while.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Now we know. I was like, wow, they really don't.
But like but with black bears, it's like they hardly ever actually hurt someone unless they're trying to eat them.
Got it.
And that's like 1 in a million.
Yeah.
Like literally
Interesting.
1 in a million. So
So when you say predatory, you mean like they're trying to eat the
they're like trying to kill a person and eat them.
And
yeah.
how often is that with grizzly bears?
Pretty rare as well.
Okay. So most bears aren't trying to eat humans.
No.
Okay.
But that's why if you're being followed by a black bear or stalked by a black bear,
It's game on.
if it's not making a lot of noise, like when they're making noise and they're like hoofing and charging and stuff, it's just like pissed and it's like a big display and it's not going to do anything to you.
Is that when you make yourself bigger? Or-
Yeah, I mean, you just be dominant, but
Yeah,
like
I'm
if
already big. I'm just kidding.
if one's following you though and it's stalking you, you gotta discourage it. I mean, you gotta throw stuff at it, you gotta yell at it. It's trying to eat you.
So the louder and like the more rowdy you
You
are,
just
the
gotta
better.
be always with them, loud and just be as mean as possible to the bear. Just convince it that you're not an easy meal.
Yeah.
But again, it's hardly ever happens. Like you have a much bigger chance of being killed by a pit bull or like
Crazy.
Wow.
some bees or something while you're out than you do a black bear.
That's
Is
crazy.
it because everyone is so like knowledgeable about it, or not knowledgeable, but just knows that they're such scary animals, so
Heightened
everyone runs
senses.
away from them? You know,
Yeah, I don't like. What do you mean with black bears?
like with the pit bull, everyone is friendly. and
Everyone's
they
thinking,
think
like, I
they
could just
be
kick
a
it,
dog.
you
But
know?
with a bear, nobody's gonna go up and try and touch a bear. Obviously,
I don't know. You'd be surprised.
Do people
Really?
do that?
Yeah, yeah. There's
That's
definitely plenty
crazy.
of dumb people around bears, but no, it's just that they again like that's a black bear is an animal that's evolved to run away.
Yeah.
I mean, I crawl into dens with them. I've literally had
That's
to like
insane.
lay down to
Wow.
let the bear try and run over top of me.
Oh, I've
Gnarly.
seen that photo actually.
Yeah.
When you're in the hole
In the
and the
den.
bear's
Pull that
staring
up?
at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you pull that up? I'm trying to see.
Yeah, where
that.
could we
Sounds
find that?
crazy.
Is that on
It's
Instagram, or-
it's the National Geographic. If you just like Googled Wesley Larson bear den National Geographic, it'll come up.
This is like the
Someone got a
craziest
photo
photo ever.
It was as a photographer that followed me into a den.
Jeez. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Maybe not for you, but
It's crazy.
I'd pee myself.
Let's see. There it is. That first one.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Wow.
Gnarly.
That is the craziest photo ever.
Is that flat? I can't even tell. Is that,
That was
are you
like
going down?
That was like an 80-foot den. That bear just somehow found this weird little
Whoa.
tube in the middle of the
just
sandstone.
sits in there all lonely.
Yeah, so it was spending the winter in there, and it had a collar that we were trying to change the battery
Wow.
out on.
What?
And,
So what were you doing in that
No,
hole?
thank you on that one.
So like the whole way crawling in, and like it looks all lit up
Yeah.
because of the flash, but it's pitch black. And so I have my headlamp, and I'm just like seeing its glowing eyes looking at me the whole way, and I have my jab stick, so I had to get within 8 feet and then poke it.
What?
And so I did, and sometimes
way
the
it
bear
like
will.
that.
Sometimes it'll like rip the jab stick out of your hand or
Yeah.
something like that. This bear was pretty good, but he was big. This is like a 350-pound black bear.
Man, I wish they were. They looked so.
But
You weren't scared of it kind of just like
Oh, I was
hitting you in the
terrified.
face and
I was
knocking you out or
terrified.
anything?
Yeah,
But what? Yeah, I mean, what?
Man, that's gnarly.
because
What you saw the eyes, so you knew it was awake.
yeah,
You just kept going.
almost always
Yeah.
on these den visits they wake up when they hear you coming, but typically the dens are shallow enough that I can like have my feet hanging out, so I poke the bear and then whoever's helping me just pulls me out really quick, and then we can cover the den up with whatever to let the drug take effect. But again, that was an 80-foot den, so there's no way for me to do that. So I had just sat there with the syringe like right next to him for a while and just let him kind of
Jeez.
like tell me how aggressive he was.
Yeah.
And he's pretty chill, so I poked him. But then that bear, after that, in this picture, he started walking out of the den slowly. And so me and him were just kind of backing up at the same pace.
No.
The photographer's just standing there.
Yeah. And so I got out, and my tech that was helping me, I was like, hey, grab that snow shovel and you keep that fucking bear in that den. Like, do whatever you need to do to keep him in there.
Yeah.
And I went and loaded up a hand syringe, and I turn around, and the bear's coming out, and he's hitting it with the snow shovel, and the bear just doesn't care, like
No.
one bit. And it walks past him, but there was like kind of a cliffside that I was really worried because the drug was going to take
Oh, it
effect
might
at
fall
some
down.
point, and I didn't want him to tumble down. And he was still coming out of hibernation and stuff, so it was a little groggy. So I literally had to go and grab his back legs and pull him out from under him,
Whoa.
jump on his back and hold his head down in the snow.
That's
and then I just
gangster.
hand syringed him
Jeez.
in the shoulder.
350
Wow,
pound bear.
that's baller.
My little brother was there, and he was like, I remember turning around and he was just going like this. And I was like, come grab his legs, come grab his legs. And
Wish
so,
you got that on video.
yeah, so him and the other kid came and grabbed his legs. And the photographer was taking photos of all this, but I was like, you can't share these.
Oh, really?
One, yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, just because that's not a typical den visit. Usually you can just keep the bear in the den, wait for it to go to sleep, and then that's it. But
I can't
Wrestle the
believe.
bear. That's freaking awesome.
yeah,
So
you can
when you're in this 80-foot hole and you jab it, it doesn't have like a reflex to come after you.
what I'm
no,
thinking.
sometimes they do, but again, it's a black bear. Like if you tried this with a grizzly bear, it would kill you, like almost for sure.
Do you still tag those things?
Not in dens. Like
Okay.
a grizzly capture is a very different, much like trickier and more careful operation.
Just blow dart? That's what I would do.
No,
Distance,
it's
snipe
in
that
those
thing.
same kind of traps, but it's like you have
Way bigger.
Yeah, I've done a number of those, and it's like a
Jeez.
very dicey thing. But these
Insane.
guys,
Jeez.
it's just trying to get away. So like, had that bear come at me, spray is not an option in like a den like that because there's nowhere for the bear to go. So I would have just laid flat and let it run over top of me. But,
Whoa.
Yeah.
I can't believe people just go up to those like you're saying. That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, people shouldn't just go do it. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying like in Yellowstone or something.
Yeah.
Like people just go up to
Oh,
pet it or
to
something.
bears.
I can't. I mean, they looked
That was a cool photo.
cute,
Second
you
one.
know, but
Yeah.
it's still terrifyingly huge and gnarly looking. I
Yeah.
mean, that size, not as scary. That's awesome that you did that. That's insane. What is that? How did you get to that?
That was a bear that we had trapped that this is like one that I was carrying that we were going to set it out to wake up from the drug, but I didn't want him to go back in the trap. Sometimes they'll like go back in the trap just to either get away or to get like more food. And this bear was really trap happy, so I was worried that it would. So I was moving it like a few hundred yards away, and that was just an easy way to do it. So, yeah.
So that is
And
an
a
adorable
badass
size.
way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an adorable size.
Yeah, that's probably like 100-pound bear. That was my favorite bear actually on that study. She was one that we caught a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish
So
they just
cool.
stayed that
I
size.
know. Can you have like a pygmy bear? Can we like mutate them a little bit?
There are some smaller bear species, and these Utah bears don't get that big, especially these desert
Jeez.
ones.
It'd be
But
so nice if they were just cool. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they are cool. I'm
I
saying.
know,
in
but
a-
like
a
Jungle
puppy
Book
dog
kind of
sense.
cool, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
awesome.
wish.
I mean,
Spiritual gurus
there's
out there.
definitely people that have trained them, and
Yeah,
that,
that's
In
true.
Russia, I feel like every
Yeah.
time I see a video like that, it's just some thick Russian man.
Uh-huh.
He's like
Slapping
high fiving it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
they're smart animals, and they're very food motivated animals, so you can train them really easily because like a food reward,
Like a
goes long
Labrador
way.
kind of thing.
Yeah, but
Just
it makes them less wild, so I'm not a big fan.
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Like,
for
I
sure.
like them to stay
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
I have a scenario. Speaking of the wild, when you're camping and you say you hear a bear or whatever, what's the best thing to do? Do you stay in your tent, or do they even want to like screw with you? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, so I think like a campsite scenario is the trickiest one. That's like kind of the most nuanced and complicated, because often like if a bear is hanging out in your campsite, it's trying to get some sort of food, and they're really hard to get out of your campsite once they're there. It usually means that like it's already gotten some kind of reward, so it's like really keyed in to sticking in your campsite. And so with both species, black and grizzly, in a campsite scenario, you have to be pretty aggressive. Like you want to get the bear out of there. So it's like hopefully you have spray, and you can spray the bear and get it out. With a black bear, like all it's going to take is you coming out of your tent and yelling at it, most likely, and it's going to be out of there. But sometimes, if it sticks around, you need to get it out because it's that's a situation that can easily turn into a predatory attack, and that's like not the one you want to be in.
Okay, so
Crazy.
you're say you're camping in the backcountry and you just hear like big footsteps or whatever.
Bigfoot steps.
And so do you just, and you maybe hear some munching or whatever, you get out of your tent and you just start screaming?
Yeah, I would start in my tent,
Okay.
like start screaming, but hopefully again you have some spray or something.
Yeah.
You want a deterrent, and then I would just start yelling and do my best to get the bear uninterested in whatever it's interested in. And if it's not leaving, then I'm starting to throw things. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah.
With grizzlies too.
Yeah. I mean,
Gosh, that's crazy.
it's a, it's a
it's crazy
tricky
to
one
think.
with a grizzly, though.
Yeah.
It is. Like, that's a situation you really don't want to find yourself in. And that's why it's so important to keep a clean campsite, to keep a bear away, because once they do have that reward, it just is like a switch just kind of gets flipped in their brain, and they become a very different animal.
Are they
Jeez.
are they deterred by fires?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do they ever sneak up on people on campfires?
I don't.
I'm scared of my back, just like.
Yeah. Not that I've ever read. I mean,
Just pushes you into the fire.
they're still really cautious animals. So, like, generally these bears that are coming into campsites are waiting until people are like in their tent and asleep, and the campsite's
man,
like quiet,
smart.
you know, because they're trying to get at some sort of food resource, and they don't necessarily want any kind of like threat to stop them from doing that. So that's just why you have to convince them that you are a threat.
Yeah.
And for me, I always recommend, like, if you're backcountry in grizzly habitat and there's multiple people, it's a good idea to bring a couple tents.
I'll just set up a bunch of them.
And like, no, to have 2 tents with 2, like, if, like, say you're 2 or more people, because then if a bear does happen to collapse one of the tents, like, say it, you know,
it's
goes
a
into a
fake
tent,
one.
the other person can respond. No, it's not
Oh,
necessarily.
I was
fake.
like, you're setting up fake ones. I was like, that's so smart.
Bring like 6 tents and you're by yourself.
I was like, wow.
It's more that, like, you don't want both people in a tent with like the spray and everything and have it collapse, because that's like, it's really hard to figure out then where your spray is or your deterrent or whatever, because your tent's on top of you. But the other person can come and spray the bear and get it out of there.
That's so
Elliott
brilliant.
brings like a blow up dummy in.
Yeah, straight up. I know. It, like sits up.
Like a
The bear's like,
like
So
silhouetted. There's like a
Yeah,
giant-
decoys.
Keeps the headlamp on this blow up
always
dummy all
bring a
night.
decoy. Always.
We were horsepacking through backcountry Montana, and the guide was saying that you won't see the bear first, you'll smell it because they smell terrible. Is that true?
Sometimes, yeah. Were you like in the Bob Marshall or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I did like a float through there once and heard a bear at night. Like I heard it kind of like they do like a "Meow," and I could hear it making those noises, and I was like, oh God,
Yeah.
there's a bear nearby. But like once you get that smell in your nose, like I've handled enough grizzly bears in like trapping scenarios to where they do have a really distinctive smell. Then you can recognize it if you're like out, but it's not like any person that's out in the backcountry would smell something and be like, oh, a bear.
Yeah.
Like you kind of need to have the context for that smell first.
Interesting.
So I don't think there's like a specific smell that I could tell people like, oh, you should be paying attention for
Yeah.
that smell.
What's the
you know?
closest type of smell?
It smells like kind of like a wet dog that's rolled in rancid meat.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's what he
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
they're
I guess
not.
you are
It's
what
not a
you
good
eat.
smelling animal. Black bears don't tend to smell nearly as bad, but grizzlies do a lot more like carcass feeding, and they get a little ripe.
Does that guy
sometimes.
smell
No, these little desert black bears like kind of smell like cedar, and
Oh,
they're
nice.
they're not that bad.
So they're perfect.
amazing.
Pygmy bears. That's
yeah,
the future.
They're mostly eating plants. They're just
Oh,
kind of
really?
like,
Chillers.
Yeah. Mhm. It's
Okay.
like 95% vegetation for them.
Whoa.
So.
We want to give a shout out to a sponsor of today's episode, Desert Door Sotol. Desert Door Sotol, the most premium spirit, distilled in Driftwood, Texas. Desert Door. Desert Door is wildly harvested, fermented, distilled, and bottled by Desert Door in Driftwood, Texas. Check them out at desertdoor.com.
The same Rocky Mountain water. The same brewing tradition that started in 1873 in Golden, Colorado. Because when you're a favorite beer of rock stars, smugglers, cowboys, and presidents, you don't compromise. That's our legacy. What do you want to go down in history for? Coors Banquet. Start your legacy.
So have you had, like, I know you pride yourself in not getting into the situation where you have to use your bear spray, but in the situation where it's a grizzly and you have an encounter, like, what's like the scariest situation that you've been in?
Yeah, you know, I had one in Glacier that. Have you guys ever been to Ptarmigan Tunnel in Glacier by chance?
I don't really.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Did we?
The tunnel that we skated through, snack skated through.
That's what that was
the
called?
tunnel?
I believe so.
Was
Such a
it
small
was it in the
tunnel.
middle of a big backcountry hike?
No.
Nope.
Okay,
It was
so-
like on a road. Mellow.
Okay, yeah. There's a tunnel there, like in the you have to hike probably 15 miles to get to
Oh,
it from
geez,
either
yeah.
side.
Nope, we did not do that. Yeah.
And we had a
Nuts.
grizzly follow us through that tunnel once, and then it comes out on this big cliffside where there's like nowhere to go either way, and that bear didn't have anywhere to go, and we didn't have anywhere to go. And that one I had like my spray out, I was like ready to go, but it managed to find like a little goat trail that it followed down, so that wasn't too bad. But then in Yellowstone last year, there was this day where me and one of my coworkers, we were looking for a bison carcass that had been reported. And so like if we have carcasses in Yellowstone that are too close to the road, they like you have all these predators come in and it just creates this whole circus. And so sometimes we'll move carcasses.
Gotcha.
And so we'd had this report of a bison carcass in this really visible area, so we were going to go in and see if we needed to move it. And we didn't see it, but we could see some bones like leading up into the woods, and we're like, oh, a bear dragged it up into the woods. So we took this little side road to go check it out, and like we were hiking in, and my coworker had been in Yellowstone for a long time. He's probably the guy I would trust more than anyone, like around a bear. And he was loading up the shotgun, and then I had the bear spray and everything. And he was looking down, like loading some cartridges in, and I look up, and from like, I don't know, me to the corner over there, like a grizzly popped up, and the carcass was right there, and we had no idea. And that's like not a situation you want to be in, is like scaring a bear off of a carcass. Yeah. And I was like, bear, bear. And he just like turned around, and we like, cause our truck was right there, and we like got in our truck. So that was kind of a weird one. And then another interesting one. Have you guys heard of Bear 399?
No.
So she's like a really famous bear in Grand Teton, because she always has a lot of cubs, and she's always like roadside. So she's like this celebrity bear. But a couple years ago, she was going into Jackson Hole.
Wow.
And
Regal.
yes,
Wow,
she
that
had
looks amazing.
She had 4 cubs in like 2020 and 2021. But these 4 cubs grew to be like adults. And they were all, so there's like 5 grizzly bears pretty much that decided to move into Jackson Hole in fall of 2021.
Wow.
And they were like raiding dumpsters. They were getting into people's chicken coops. And these are like 5 full-size grizzly bears, like a herd of grizzly bears, essentially.
That is scary.
And Fish and Wildlife hired a number of people to essentially be like a task force to try and keep her and her cubs out of trouble. And I was one of those people. And one night they like went into downtown Jackson, and so the police like shut off the roads, and we were like driving through suburbs and literally like seeing 5 big grizzly bears in like people's yards eating their like flower beds and stuff in the middle of the night. And then we lost them, and me and my coworker were driving around, and I see them in like this hotel, kind of like the center part of a hotel where it like wraps around like a little center plaza.
Oh, okay.
They were all 5 like in the middle of this little plaza, and then like I was nervous that someone was going to come out of their door or something and walk into 5 grizzly bears. So I bailed out of the truck with just a paintball gun and just started paintballing.
That's
them
what I've seen,
in
people
this.
paintballing.
Yeah, and just hitting all 5 of them, and then chasing them on foot through like a trailer park and then behind another hotel. And it was
What a
just
sight
the
for people.
craziest, it's the craziest like moment, just like running behind these 5 grizzly bears with a paintball gun through like downtown Jackson. And then
Someone probably saw you.
I
Like,
know.
Who is that guy?
I know, straight
there was a
up.
number of us, but it was just like wild. And then they bedded down in this this ditch, and we didn't know they were there, and we just lost them. And it was like, again, in downtown Jackson, like we're in like alleyways. This isn't like a forested part.
Yeah.
Like this isn't an alley. And I just like couldn't find these bears, and it was so frustrating. And then I'm shining my flashlight around, and I see a little bit of eye shine, because their eyes shine like green in the dark.
Yeah.
See a little bit of eye shine like a few inches off the ground. I was like, that can't be a bear, but it was a big eye. And then I realized they were in this ditch, and they were all 5 laying on top of each other
Whoa.
down in this ditch. And there was all this
Crazy.
brush on the other side of it. So I just got in the brush and just started like firing out
Oh
there
my God.
with a cop behind me, like a loaded shotgun.
Yeah.
And they all just bust out of there and run across the street.
Crazy.
And then I pushed them further north that night. I caught up with them again and kept pushing them north because the goal was to get them back into the park. And over a few nights, me and all the people I was working with on that project, we succeeded in getting them back into Grand Teton. And then we just tried to keep them in the park as much as possible. But
Talk
that was a
about an
wild one.
adrenaline
Yeah.
rush. Right?
Yeah.
I've got a video I'll show you guys after we're done of like me following them in a truck one night, and it's just all these grizzly bears like running in front of me, and it was like
Jeez.
I felt like a grizzly cowboy.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Jeez. What when you're out there, doing your bear thing, are there ever occurrences with other animals? Like you're not like whether that's any sort of wild cat or anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen like probably 7 or 8 mountain lions, but never had any kind of like
Oh, really? No
they
issue?
don't want anything to do with you. Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's so
Good to know.
rare that they ever go for a person, and it's usually someone that's like moving really fast, like a trail runner or a biker or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
and they just have to they're like, oh, is that food? I guess it's food, and they go for it.
Uh-huh.
But generally, if they have the time to make a decision, they're not going to go for a person, like a kid or something. They
Yeah.
might, but a full like adult man,
Jeez.
generally not. But moose are the ones that scare me. Like they're the
Really?
ones that I've had my closest calls with, and that I just like. Every time I see a moose, I give it a wide berth because they're just mean.
Oh, really? I've only seen one from mega distance. Remember that? Montana?
the river.
What did
Yeah,
it cross?
yeah.
That was
swimming.
big.
That was cool, but it looked huge from so far. But
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
run
been up
into
close.
a few a year, and they're just like an ornery, mean animal.
Really?
Yeah.
Like they want to charge people.
Oh yeah, I've been charged like a bunch of times, and it's
Jeez.
just not fun because there's just nothing. There's not really a good tactic. Like you just got to get away.
Yeah.
That's like one of the few animals that running away is a good idea, but it's not always possible.
Damn.
Jeez. Do bears take them down?
Sometimes, yeah. Like
what a
a big
fight.
grizzly can take down an adult moose, but it's rare. But they'll take down their calves like crazy.
Got it.
They pick them off. Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah.
So,
Really?
as like a bear expert, are people hiring you for one-off jobs, or do you have like a full-time gig somewhere? How does that work?
Yeah, sometimes. So I've kind of had a unique career in that I started in like academia doing my master's, and that was like paid gigs where I was doing polar bear work and black bear work. And then right after that, I got into some sloth bear work in India. So they're like an Indian species of bear.
Sloth bear.
Yeah, they're a cool little bear. And then and they're responsible for more attacks than any other bear actually in the
Oh
world.
wow.
Whoa.
Oh
Yeah.
I've seen these.
Gnarly.
cool.
Looks like an anteater kind of.
Well, and they actually mostly eat ants and termites, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
kind of why they have some similar
Crazy.
features. But and
Jeez.
then that was like a project that was right before the pandemic and kind of got sidelined because of that. So I got into working with eagles and raptors for a little bit in
Jeez.
Utah, and then got hired on as a seasonal employee in Yellowstone with their bear management team, and was working with grizzlies and black bears there. And then like that $3.99 bear gig was like a one-off kind of contract thing.
Yeah.
I'll do contract stuff here and there. And now like with the podcast, that's kind of become a main focus too.
Sick.
Just
Wow.
because it's really taken off. And like in a weird way, I feel like that's the thing I've done that's had the most impact, because it's all about like giving people the tools they need to go out, like telling them the worst possible stories to give them the tools they need to go out and like avoid those kind of
Yeah,
situations. In a weird way, like telling these stories that are really gruesome have like given people more confidence to go out and deal with wildlife, because they then understand like, oh, this isn't a bloodthirsty animal. This is like a grizzly bear that reacted to a threat, or this is a mountain lion that thought maybe I was prey because of a behavior I was doing. You know, and the more you know about those kind of situations, the more confident you can feel when you're in the backcountry or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
So weirdly, it's had this effect that we were hoping for, where like we get messages every day from people saying, I feel so much more confident. I carry bear spray now. I like have this appreciation for wildlife I never had. So it's kind of more and more I'm diverting more attention toward that kind of like education and outreach stuff. But keeping a foot in field work at the same time.
That's awesome. That's a cool place to be in. for
Yeah,
sure.
it's great.
Is that mostly outdoor work, or is it a lot of in office too?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a wildlife biologist, a lot of biologists get to a point where they can either like kind of keep moving up the ladder and spending less time in the field, but you make more money, you're more in the office.
Yeah.
Or you can take these jobs that really don't pay very well at all, but you have really fun field work. And I tend to just kind of go for the second ones because I'm much more of like I like collecting experience. That sounds really corny and cliche, but like
No,
for me, especially in my
sure.
career, like having these kind of in the field experiences are so, like I couldn't buy those if I wanted to. And that's like the kind of thing that makes me feel alive. So for me, I tend to like try and cut costs wherever I can and then take these jobs that don't pay necessarily quite as well. But they're fun.
It's admirable.
Yeah.
I like that.
They're great. I mean, it's tricky though. It's especially like nowadays where none of us will ever be able to like buy homes or do any of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
But
It'd be cool to have you on one of our trips because I mean we'll be in Montana actually.
Yeah,
in July.
we'll meet
That'd be
up.
Pretty sick.
Yeah.
to have you on a trip.
yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
see a bear.
if
Yeah,
you guys like are near Glacier, I have a very good record of finding bears in Glacier. Like,
Jeez.
yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah,
I don't know
almost
how close
100%.
I've ever been to a bear, really.
I've seen one out of a car a few times, but I've never been on foot.
Yeah. Yellowstone's the place. Like if you want to see bears, May and June in Yellowstone, like you can hardly, there's parts of that park that you can hardly go with like and not, you'd have a hard time not seeing a bear, you know? But Glacier too is like a great park.
So
for
you're good at finding bears. Like, what makes you good at finding them?
I mean, like in the parks, it's more just like driving around and looking for cars that are stopped, you know?
Yeah.
But the thing that I've gotten really good at is like often those bears that are roadside will be like walking or looking for whatever and they disappear into the brush and everyone kind of thinks like, oh, it's over and they leave. I've gotten really good at like seeing where that bear is going to come back out and like parking my car right on the road where I know it's about to cross the road or something. And that's kind of a skill that you pick up after a while.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to drive a half mile down the road because that grizzly's going to come out right here.
Yeah.
And you get pretty good at like kind of anticipating where they're going.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So why do people? What's the deal with hey bear? Why does everyone say hey bear?
Yeah, it's
Hey
just,
bear.
it's kind of just like, I think it's just like the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
You can say whatever, it doesn't matter.
Seems
Yeah.
calming too to yourself. You
We
know?
brought
It's
this
like,
up
"Hey,
in
bear."
another episode. I forget why.
I don't.
But we were talking about Hey Bear.
Yeah.
It's always on that
it's
show.
just
Yeah.
like it's the easiest. It's like, it's low hanging fruit, but
Yeah.
like,
And then what is that supposed to do? Just like
it's just warning. Like the main thing, like with grizzlies especially, is you want to avoid a surprise encounter. A large percentage of maulings are the person isn't making noise. They come around a corner and a bear's there, and the kind of biological reasoning for that is that you're not giving that animal time to make a decision. If like a bear knows you're coming from a few hundred yards away, it's just going to leave. It doesn't want anything to do with you. It doesn't know necessarily what kind of threat you are. So it's just going to go. It's not worth the risk. But if you come around a corner and it no longer has that time to make that decision and it has to make a rushed decision, often that decision is going to be, okay, I'm just going to knock this thing down and then get out of here. So you making that noise like in anticipation of like maybe running into a bear just gives the animal the time it needs to make the right decision, which is to get out of there.
so. You know how you're saying that a grizzly bear just wants to neutralize and then leave. What if you just neutralize yourself? You just like fall on the floor and you're like,
Yeah.
you killed me.
I mean,
That'd be hilarious.
that's
though.
that
All your
like
friends.
it honestly like works.
Yeah.
It does, but like it's not the reason. So some people have heard play dead with a grizzly bear and they'll do that. Like if a bear charges, they like flop down and it might work. But the thing is, like, they can be predatory. Like, this is an animal that could decide it wants to eat you.
Yeah.
And that could be that, that rare bear that you might be dealing with a predatory one. And then you're just giving it the easiest meal it's ever had in its entire life. So that's why having that deterrent is what you really need, because that stops any interaction with the grizzly.
Yeah.
If you or a black bear, if you do happen to have run into that one bear that does maybe want to feed on you, it's going to stop it too. And so, yeah, if I didn't have spray and a bear's coming at me, I might play dead. But for me, that's like saying, well, what if I get in a car accident? I'm not wearing my seatbelt. You know, you should have your spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should wear your seatbelt because
Like 50-50.
right at that point, it's
Yeah.
like you're giving the animal the control, and you don't want to give a grizzly bear the control in that interaction. Like you want to be the one in charge.
Especially if you're with like a group of friends and one of you just drops dead. And
Yeah.
everyone else
We're like,
runs.
bro, yeah.
You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What about guns? Like, if you miss, is it the sound enough to deter it?
Can be.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely can be. There's like a lot of videos out there where people like fire into the ground or something and
Yeah.
the bear
Yeah.
peels off. Like more than often it's enough. But if you like say it's a female with cubs and she's pissed and she's coming at you and like it's not a bluff charge,
Yeah.
that's not going to stop her.
Yeah.
And if you shoot at her, there's a good chance you're just going to wound her and she's just going to be even like more pissed
Jeez.
at you. So I don't like, we carry guns in Yellowstone, and it's definitely like a tool, but I'm going to my spray first.
Yeah.
And then like, if I'm being mauled by a bear, a short gun, like a 45 or something, like a handgun, is a good idea to have, because then if you're actually being mauled, you can pull it out and put it against the bear's head and shoot.
Wow, that's gangster as well.
Yes.
Damn.
So that to me is like better than a long gun, just because once the bear's close
Practical.
enough, a long gun isn't going
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
much
yeah.
for you, but a short gun works pretty well.
Jeez.
So if you see cubs, basically just run.
Don't run, but like slowly back out of there,
Okay.
make some noise. Like I was in the park last year, again, investigating a carcass, which is like the scariest thing kind of. And all of a sudden we just hear like me, which is like a bawling cub grizzly. And we were just like
Yeah.
turned around and like got out of there. But you don't want to
walk
run.
out?
You just get out quickly.
Jeez.
Yeah.
God, that sounds
Or
hard to do.
why don't you want to run?
Because every once in a while, like
And all the info.
the thing is, like, say that bear is there watching you. It's trying to figure out what you are. It's trying to figure out, you know, how to respond to you. And it's picking up cues that you're giving it. And if you turn and run, it's like, oh, that's what food does. You know, all of its food runs from it. And so if you run from it, there is the chance that you trigger a predatory response in that animal where it's like, oh, this actually is food. I'm going to chase it down and kill it. So you don't want to run
balls
from it.
though to do that.
Yeah.
To run?
No, to not,
Not
run.
run.
To just like slowly creep away
Yeah.
from your own death.
You'll probably, I mean, running will probably work, but again,
They're fast, right?
it's not worth taking the risk. Oh yeah, you can't run away from it, but like
Crazy.
there's a good chance that it's just not going to do anything. But I never run from any kind of predator.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea.
It's
I gotta-
hard to be in that scenario and do all the right things.
I know.
So
That's why,
hard.
honestly,
Panicking.
but that's why it gets so complicated, because you even if you get on the national park website or something, they have just pages of
Yeah.
bear information and bear
Totally.
safety information. But that's why bear spray is so great, is like it uncomplicates it.
Yeah, just
You
have
just
that.
get it out, get it ready, and spray it if it gets within 30 feet, and that will stop it. It just puts a cloud in between you and the animal, and it just like simplifies everything. So I'm a big proponent of, when it comes to bear safety, not like bogging people down with like, oh, make yourself look big, you know, talk in a respectful voice, or like there's these
Yeah.
weird things you hear. What I always say is there's like 3 things that are proven to be effective that everyone should do. Works with both species. Group up, because they don't like attacking groups of people. It's just like a much more intimidating threat for them if you're in like a cohesive group. So if you're with a group of people and you're spread out on the trail, group up. Get your bear spray out and get it ready. Slowly back away. Those are the 3 things. If you do those 3 things, you're like 99.9% chance of like not having a bad interaction. So those are the 3 things
yeah.
people should remember: grouping up, getting bear spray out, getting it ready, and backing away.
Never forget it.
Noted.
Yeah,
Never forget it.
definitely noted.
Yeah. Okay, I know you were doing polar bear stuff. Are there like global warming photos of polar bears that are just like fully out of like?
Emaciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that real? Like,
Yeah.
it's actually happening.
It
What do you mean
is.
by this? I guess to back up, because I don't know about this.
Just like
There's just
photos of
photos.
like really skinny bears walking coastlines and stuff.
And it's usually allotted with global warming that they're losing their like
Sea ice.
environment and
Like lack of food?
Yeah, so
okay.
so for them, there's 19 subpopulations of polar bears. They're scattered throughout the Arctic and subarctic, and all of them,
Oh, wow.
they eat seals. Like seals are their meal, and the only way they can catch seals is by hunting them on the sea ice. because seals will maintain these little breathing holes, and a bear will kind of just wait by the breathing hole. And when the seal pops up, it grabs it and pulls it out.
Wow.
That's their
Gotcha.
main way of hunting
Okay.
them.
Gnarly.
They also can do like some stock hunting on the sea ice and stuff. But essentially, like, they can't swim down a seal. They can't like they have to stalk and hunt them on the sea ice. So if there's no sea ice, they don't eat. This is an animal that is completely tied to the sea ice. There's a few bears in places where they like kill whales and stuff that they'll feed on whale carcasses, where like native villages and whatnot will kill whales, and then the bears come in and eat the scraps. Or a few bears that have figured out how to kill like beluga whales. But for the most part, they eat seals and they eat them on the sea ice. So in a lot of places where, like Hudson Bay, where forever, like if throughout recorded history, there's been these periods where there's sea ice and then it melts and it recedes. Bears come on shore and they fast. Like they go through a couple months where they're just really not eating anything and they're waiting for the sea ice to refreeze. And their bodies are built for that. Like that's just kind of built in their biology. But as the sea ice like melts earlier and refreezes later, we're pushing that fasting period. So these bears are having to fast for weeks, if not months, longer than they've had to in the past. And that's why you're seeing these kind of bears that are getting really emaciated. And even more than that, we're seeing places where bears commonly had 2 or 3 cubs. Now they only have 1, if any. And there's some places where they're not really even having cubs anymore. So there's some subpopulations of polar bears that are doing just fine. Like, if anything, global warming maybe is opening up some new resources for them right now. But most of them are really under threat from losing sea ice, and then at some point all of them will be. This is an animal that we will lose if like things proceed the way they're proceeding.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's no like future for them if we can't.
But grizzlies and black bears are not going extinct or anything like
They're
that.
a much more adaptable animal because they have this wide variety of stuff that they can eat. But with polar bears, it's just seals. So for them, they're such a niche animal that and they're so tied to sea ice that there's no
crazy.
like way out for them.
Are they the largest bear in the
They
bear
are.
family?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was always curious because like you see that photo and like you hear different sides of like, oh, global warming's real or it's not real. So like you see that photo, I was like, is that just propaganda? That's just like a sick bear that like they got one photo of, but I don't know.
No, I mean I spent 7 field seasons working with polar bears, and just in the time that I started to when I finished, things had warmed significantly up there. Like my first year, it was like very common. My first couple years, like -40, -50, and by the end, I was like, it was rare that it dipped below -20.
Wow.
And again, like when you're talking about climate, you don't want to look at specific like years, because that's just like any year can variate.
Yeah.
You look at the long-term trends,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no, like among polar bear biologists, among climatologists, like there's no debate. Like it's definitely changing quickly, especially in places like the Arctic. Sea ice extent is like way lower than it's ever been in recorded history, and for an animal like this, it's a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's a grim outlook for them, unfortunately.
Man.
What parts of Alaska did you study in?
I was in Prudhoe Bay, so like it's right on the oil field, and then I got out to Barrow and all the way to the Canadian border, essentially, but like all along the Arctic coast, northernmost Alaska.
There's been like polar bear attacks up there, right?
A couple,
Yeah.
a handful. They're not a bear that often attacks people. When they do, it's almost always a predatory attack again. But it's not common by any means. We're too bony for them to really like get what they need out of us. So it's just not. It's usually like a subadult male that just hasn't really figured out how to be a polar bear yet. Because it's kind of like a great white shark's a similar animal where it's more energetically costly for them to process all of our bones and everything than the energy they get from eating us. So once they really, like a great white, when they bite into a person, they kind of like, oh, this isn't what I wanted necessarily,
Yeah,
you
that
know?
makes sense.
But like a polar bear doesn't necessarily target us because they're looking for marine mammals. They're looking for seals.
Fatty
and
animals.
stuff. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, what's their I guess caloric intake? Are they eating just big amounts of fat?
Yeah.
Like-
So like they'll kill a seal and they'll just strip it of its blubber and leave a lot of the other stuff just because they're just trying to get that fat.
Whoa, crazy.
And they'll just like tons and tons and tons of calories.
Yeah.
I mean, seals are just packed with it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then do they survive off of one seal for a bit, or is it?
I forget. That's a good question. There's like I think a polar bear on average kills, I want to say it's like a seal every 3 or 4 days.
Oh wow!
But don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Because that's like one that I would have to look up to remember.
We could probably Google that.
Yeah.
See what
but
comes up.
yeah, it's and that's like there's times of the year like when seals are pupping and stuff, they'll find their little dens and cave them in and eat all the pups, and that's kind of like the best time of the year for them.
Yeah,
50 seals a year to survive.
Okay.
Okay, that doesn't.
So yeah, that'd be like
it's like one a week.
yeah. So, but it also varies between populations. There's some that eat more and some that eat less. So.
Yeah, it's
Probably
like
seasonal,
1.5 seals per week on average.
Yeah.
Damn.
So every 3
During
or
the
4
hunting
days.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
November
half
through
seal.
July.
Did they hibernate?
So only with polar bears, it's only the pregnant females that hibernate, and that's what I was studying specifically was those bears. And what they do is they find like a snowdrift, they'll dig into it and then like carve out a little cave in the snow, and then it snows back over the top of their den entrance. So you can't see a polar bear den with your naked eye; it just looks like a snowdrift.
Yeah.
And then they're just in there. Like black bears and grizzly bears sometimes will come out of their dens in the winter and do whatever. A polar bear just is in it. So when a female's pregnant, she goes in, snows over top of her. She has her cubs, and generally like January, raises them, and then comes out in March or April.
They just sit there and hang out.
They're just hanging out in this ice cave for the
What
winter.
they think about.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
They're born less than a pound. They're these tiny little naked
Wow.
bears, and then her milk fat is like 33%. So it's essentially like drinking not butter, but like half and half, or no, whole cream. It's like drinking whole cream.
Damn.
And they get big really quickly, and then
So if you want to be a linebacker, just drink.
drink polar bear milk.
Polar bear milk.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
tried
I
it?
might do that. With
I
my
haven't
kid.
tried it. No, it's not easy to get.
Start feeding my wife fat only.
Who's your guy? Polar bear milk guy.
Polar bear milk guy. I could probably find one. I'm sure you know one, right? I got a random question, but I feel like you're the guy to ask. This is a age-old question. Okay.
Okay.
Who would win in a fight between a silverback gorilla and a grizzly bear?
Yeah, this is a great question. So we actually on Tooth and Claw we have a cage match category that we
No
talk
way.
about where we like our
That's
animal
fun.
of the episode. We kind of rank it against the other animals
That's
that we
fun.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a good one, and this is one that I did on I forget which episode. I did a deep dive into this.
I'm gonna have to get
I
into
looked
that.
into bite force. I looked into like strategies for like predators. I looked into like every kind of comparison between these two animals, and I give grizzly bears the edge. I used to be a
Whoa.
gorilla guy. I used to think it was a gorilla.
Yeah.
I think it's grizzly bears, and I think it mostly comes down to the tools that they have.
Yeah.
Like grizzlies have both the
claw.
claws and the teeth, and then
What's the environment though? Is this in a ring, like a cage, or is
ours
this like, in the
a
trees?
we do a cage match. So
Oh,
that's
cage
like-
match.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the gorilla's got like the grip strength.
Yeah, I
They
know,
do,
right? Choke
but-
them out.
But like it, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. Like I don't think it's like
Yeah.
I think it's one where you see like
You'd have to
one of
see it
these
live.
animals are winning. I would give the grizzly like 6 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
You know, but
There's like King Kong can come in and just dominate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But
Has
this
there
is-
ever been a fight between the two? I don't know
maybe
where they
like
would.
the Romans did it back in the day or
Is
something.
there a way? Can you
That's
Google that? I'm just
wild.
curious.
Isn't that like
illegal?
It's not ethical. It's definitely not ethical.
Yeah.
But
We're
Isn't there
all
like
excited about this.
like an AI thing now?
Probably.
Oh, is it?
yeah.
Right? What's that called?
Wait,
You
what
can,
do you
like,
mean?
Oh, I should look into that.
Yeah, it's like you can pick like 1,000, whatever, like 1,000 gorillas and like
Oh
a
yeah.
couple
I've seen
dragons
that.
or whatever.
Or, like,
and,
2
like,
T-Rexes.
see how
Watch
they
them
would
fight?
Yeah.
Like, just-
What?
Find
I
out.
need to see that.
Yeah.
I have never
You
heard
ever
of
seen
that.
these videos?
No.
I
But
will
people,
say-
people do like Bruce Willis and like,
Versus
you know,
a gorilla?
Yeah, like
Jeez, Bruce Willis would probably win that.
I will say if you took the biggest grizzly bear versus the biggest gorilla, it's hands down the grizzly bear without a doubt.
Just as sheer
because
size.
they can get to be like 1,500 pounds, and a gorilla tops out at like 400 or 500.
Oh, really? They're that
Yeah.
small?
Wow.
So, but if you took the average size, which they're kind of in the same realm, then it gets a lot more
What about
nuanced.
what
They would
about
just lay on him at that point.
Yeah, yeah,
grizzly
exactly.
versus polar? full size?
That happens. So like,
Oh, that does
there's
happen.
places where they both live.
Oh,
And
shit.
it's usually the grizzlies in those places are like these barren ground grizzlies that don't get very big, but they'll actually run polar bears off of kills and
Damn.
stuff because they're just such a more aggressive
dog.
bear. Yeah.
Top
So-
bear, I guess.
Were you around for any? I guess not to get like morbid, but for any like crazy killings, like where grizzly bears killed somebody in Yellowstone?
No, that's again, like I was saying
Just
earlier,
waiting
it's
for
kind
that.
of like a thing that I don't know. I should be careful. Like I obviously don't want that to ever
Yeah.
happen to
Yeah.
a person, but I am so fascinated by those interactions that like in Yellowstone we average one mauling a year, which is pretty crazy considering there's like 5 million visits a
Yeah,
year.
seriously.
Like, it's a very good record. But both of the seasons that I've been there, we haven't had a mauling. Well, there actually was one the first season I was there, but I started right after it.
Just missed it.
The last fatality in the park was 2017, so it's been a minute.
Damn.
But yeah,
Because like even I don't know if you watch the show Yellowstone.
I do.
But in like
yeah.
the first or second season when they did that whole like tourist thing and then
Oh God.
2 of them died.
Yeah, that's over
that
the
seems like it
top.
could be a realistic scenario sometimes.
It could generally. So Yellowstone, like for example, these bear jams you see in the park where there's like hundreds of cars lined up. There's never been a bear incident at one of those bear jams. There's never been a person bit or
Because there's
hurt.
so many people.
Yeah, it's like
there.
100 on one there.
Yeah.
Right. And this is like in modern times. Back when they fed them, people would get bit all the time. But nowadays, there hasn't been an issue in those. Where it usually happens is backcountry. People hiking that aren't making noise or aren't being careful, and they get knocked over by a bear.
I did like that episode in the show though, just because it showed like how stupid people could be and how like aggressive and powerful those
Yeah.
animals are.
I
Yeah.
don't remember that episode at all.
Basically, it's like a tour bus, and they hop over this gated fence and are like 10 feet away, like taking photos of this grizzly bear.
Crazy. I can't
Yeah.
believe people.
And
do
then
that.
Kevin Costner comes and literally just like shoots his shotgun in there, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
Classic.
yeah.
Did you find it?
You do see
No.
you see a lot of bison gorings. Like that's the one that happens
Yeah,
a lot
but-
more often, where people think it's just a cow.
Really?
They'll walk right. I mean, I saw
People think
countless
it's a
people.
cow?
They just think it's like a
Mellow.
docile
Oh.
because they're so slow moving and they just seem like they don't give a shit. And
Until they charge you.
every year there's people tossed by bison, and every year some
Jeez.
people get charged by elk. And a crazy time of the year in Yellowstone is elk calving season. So like the female elk will just drop their calves all over Mammoth, which is where I worked. Mammoth's like a little town within the park, and they'll drop them like under cars, and they drop them everywhere where like safe areas where predators aren't necessarily going to want to come and get their calves.
Oh yeah.
So they drop them in like really really urban parts of Mammoth, and which isn't an urban place at all, but like as far as urban
Yeah.
or so anyway, they'll drop them in like in front of a doorway or something where employees are working. And so bear management team is essentially responsible for all of the wildlife in the park. And what we have to do sometimes is go grab these calves and literally sprint away from mom while she's charging you, trying to kill you because you
Oh,
picked up her
damn.
calf. But the calf needs to get moved, and that's like the only way to do it. So we'll like pull our truck up and park it in just a way where we're trying to block her off. And then one of us will dash out and like
Oh
pick up
my
the calf,
God.
and it immediately starts screaming. And then mom like,
Calf napping.
yeah. So that's a
is.
fun time of the year. And then bears are picking them off like crazy. They kill like 50% of them. So it's a fun time to be there.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
We gotta see something and do something when we're out there.
Yeah.
know.
Yellowstone's great, especially like
I haven't been out there yet.
early June that's when calving is happening, and bears are just killing calves left and right, and it's just really fun. It's a fun time of the year. to be in the
Wild.
park.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we haven't spent much time in Glacier. I think we're all a little bit more like public land guys. Like
Yeah.
we like the freedom and less
Yeah.
people. So it would be cool to go out there and just try and spot some wildlife.
Yeah,
Get into
I
it.
mean, I love the national parks for that reason.
Yeah.
Like, they're popular and there's tons of people, but they've been protected for so long that the animals have really been able to thrive in those places, and you get some really cool wildlife experiences in parks.
Yeah, we got to give it a go.
And it was so smoky when we were there.
Oh,
we were there
yeah.
during fire season.
yeah.
I don't even remember. Was it July?
Yeah, it was like 2019.
It was insane.
Yeah, we had some
2019
bad. Last year was
Terrible.
a good year. There was hardly any
Yeah,
smoke.
last year
but
was nice.
Yeah, that was nice. Hopefully again.
Yeah.
We'll be up there mid-July, so hopefully.
yeah,
Fingers crossed.
I might be in Brazil, but if I'm around, I'll definitely come meet up with you guys. Yeah.
Are there any bears in Brazil?
No, but I got into I'm guiding some tours down there for people to see jaguars. So,
Ooh.
Oh,
yeah.
How do you guide something that you haven't done? Or have you done it?
No, I have.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have just guessed that. I don't know
No,
why
and I
did.
speak Portuguese, and
Oh.
so
Whoa.
it's
I got you, Mattson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think about that a lot. Like there'll be like guides that are like, oh yeah, I'm moving up to Idaho to be a guide. I'm like, how do you do that? If
Yeah.
How do you just get into that?
It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
You kind of figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
It's like
yeah.
someone guiding
Yeah.
you to guide. You know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So you
But sorry about that.
got it because we know a guy that kind of did like guiding for jaguars and how they're super elusive.
Yeah.
Hatton?
And have you like actually spotted them, or do you like
Yeah.
set cameras? and
Yeah.
stuff?
My last trip, we saw like 4 or 5 different jaguars.
Damn.
There's this spot in the Pantanal in Brazil where like if you go the right time of year, you're gonna see them. Like it's almost a guaranteed sighting. So
Wild.
that's kind of
And you
that's
can
where we
just
take
walk
people
up,
and
see them, and
no,
get
you
out
go
of
on
there?
a boat. You're on a boat.
Oh.
And, like they're hunting caiman in the riverways.
And they don't come in the boat? And
No, it's just like this time of year where the river drops enough that all the caiman are lined up, which are like a species of
yeah, yeah.
crocodilian. They're lined up just on the banks of the river, and the jaguars just patrol, and they're just picking them off
Jeez.
like crazy.
Wow.
And so you just go out on a boat and just kind of drive up or go up and down the river looking for jaguars.
do they just smack them? Like, how do they eat them?
They pounce on them and grab them by the back of the neck. And they're no match for them.
I kind of want to see that.
Wild.
Yeah, it's cool. I
Can
saw
you pull
one.
a visual of that? I wanna
Yeah,
see
I
that.
saw one like walk out onto a log. I have a video of it, and like just it was laying there, and all of a sudden it saw a caiman and it like pounced in the water. It
Jeez.
was really,
Jeez.
they're a neat animal.
How big are jaguars? I didn't even conceptualize that.
I mean, they're like a few hundred pounds. Like the max size is probably
Okay.
like in the 200s. They're not like a massive animal, but they're
It's not
they're
like a
big.
tiger.
They have they're the 3rd biggest cat in the world. So
number-
tigers are number 1, then lions, then jaguars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tigers are bigger than lions?
Yeah, like a Moor tiger, like the Russian ones get bigger than lions.
They have Russian tigers?
What's the correct term for like the black cat with the green eyes?
Like a black panther.
Yeah, Black Panther.
Yeah.
So black panthers are generally either leopards or jaguars that
Gotcha.
are melanistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're so sick looking.
Yeah.
Man.
Generally, yeah. So both jaguars and leopards can be all black. But there's
could-
parts of the world where it's more common.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had tigers up there. I love tigers.
In
bro.
Russia.
So, what do you think then? Tiger or lion in a fight?
yeah. Tiger, like a
Wow.
big Siberian Amur tiger.
Damn.
Is like they're number 1.
They're not the white ones, are they? It's different?
Nah, I mean they can be. White ones are like that's something we did. That's
Oh,
that's
really?
human
That's some Vegas
invention.
shit?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So then tiger
That's
and
sad.
grizzly, it's still grizzly?
No, it's tigers.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, like we're talking like this is like an Amur Siberian tiger. They can get to be like 600 pounds, and they regularly feed on bears. They'll kill brown
Oh my
bears, and
God.
black bears.
Okay, so
over
that
there.
answers the age-old question then.
The tiger is the king.
They're
of the
number
jungle.
1.
Tiger's the
yeah,
king.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why do people say lions are the king of the jungle?
I don't
They
know.
just don't
the
know
roar,
what they-
I mean,
maybe?
it would be a good fight, like a big
Romantic?
male African lion, but I.
Oh, right on it.
This is what my cat does in the morning.
So this is the stuff you see.
Right under your lap.
And like, you
Wow.
can- this is
Dude's
very
tunable.
a very common thing.
I would pay
over
to see
here.
that.
It's cool. It's a fun trip.
Gnarly. I mean,
That would be
That's insane.
dude.
crocodiles always freak me out too. Look at that
Oh.
thing.
And you see
Jeez.
millions.
They have
of
such a
caiman.
crazy pattern too.
Yeah.
Jaguars. Like
Yeah.
why is that?
So they like both jaguars and leopards have what are called rosettes, where it's this like spot that's a circle, and then jaguars have a spot within that rosette, and that's how you can tell the two apart. But the whole idea behind that spot pattern is just like in the jungle, the light dappling, it makes it really hard to see them.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes sense, I guess.
So we stay on that trip. We stay on a houseboat, and there was this morning where I woke up, and there's this little spot of jungle right in front of my window that was just like gorgeous. It was just like this little opening and clearing in the jungle. And every day I was like, man, it'd be so cool to see a jaguar in there. But like we would always have to travel a good distance to see the cats, and I didn't think there was any chance. And then one morning, I heard a splash off the boat. And it was usually, you'd hear splashes all the time, but it was caiman just like eating fish and stuff. And I go and I investigate the splash, and I see this tail like move up through the brush. And I was like, oh shit. And then I ran out, and I was looking through that path, and a jaguar walked right through the middle of this like beautiful little patch of jungle right in front of my window. And it was all dappled, and it was really hard to see because of the spot pattern.
Wow.
So, yeah, they do.
Are
The
they?
camouflage
I
works
know.
really well.
Jeez. Can
Yeah.
you pull up the Amur tiger now, Eli? I just need to see all these things.
How do you spell that?
Blow my mind.
AMUR.
AMU.
Everything's gnarlier in Russia, I feel like.
Yeah, there's this book you should read. It's called The Tiger by John
Dang.
Valiant.
Okay.
It's about an Amur tiger that essentially, like, got revenge on a hunter.
Well,
And it's
is
a
it
true
real?
story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like
What
the
did
tiger
they-
that's in like Life of Pi. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, essentially.
Wait,
Right.
so the hunter like killed its little cub or
Yeah, so
something?
there's an Amur tiger. No, like the hunter shot it, or I
Oh.
can't remember exactly, but it's a really fascinating story.
And just
I think they're
hunted him
making a
down.
movie out of it.
That is a
Gnarly.
cool looking animal.
Yeah.
So
So
you said
they're the
that's like
biggest. That's the
500
biggest cat
pounds?
in the world.
It's crazy that there's
Yeah.
like house cats too.
I know.
I know that we have these animals in our house.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of sick.
Man.
Some people have tigers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
do you have any crazy pets?
I had some raccoons that I raised.
Okay, that's fun.
They were really fun, and then I had I pet alligator for a while too.
In your pool? Or-
No, I welded a little cage for him and like made. Yeah.
Wow. Just to keep people out of your house.
Wow.
It was the day after Steve Irwin died.
Oh, really?
I
Just went
bought-
out?
I
What'd you
know.
name it?
It was
Oh,
dumb.
I was like,
I
name it
named it
Steve?
Steve.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. But
That's fun.
You know, it was like college, and honestly, I'm a big proponent of people not having exotic animals, so like
Yeah.
I do kind of regret that, but
That's fun.
but it was fun. I was
Yeah.
in college. It was a fun time.
Where'd you
but,
buy it?
That's a crazy college thing to do.
I bought it from like there's just like a guy who had baby alligators that I found online.
In
Montana?
Utah?
Yeah.
Oh, in Utah.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
That is weird. There's a lot of weird
Or
things.
you
in
get
Utah.
polar bear milk too.
Yeah, honestly, probably.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give me some of that.
But it
pill.
was like it was an illegal pet to have in Utah. Like full
Yeah.
disclosure, it definitely wasn't something I should have
How
had.
big was it?
You're under
It
arrest.
was just tiny.
Oh,
when I got
okay.
it, and then it grew to be about like.
Oh,
gnarly.
gosh.
Yeah.
Did
Did you
like,
get that in
walk
your
it?
like dorm room?
Pretty much in an apartment. Yeah, I made this
Damn.
big cage for it, and then
be a hard room to
someone
bring girls home
stole
to.
it. Like,
What?
a
Someone
kid-
stole
a
it?
kid like broke into my house and stole it.
Shut up.
Did you ever find out? What happened?
I like
Or
had a
did
pretty
he
good idea
break
who
out?
did it. Yeah.
Who do you think?
God,
it was?
that's a rivalry.
It was like a kid who lived in an attached unit to the house I was living in.
Is he like
Damn.
trying to sell it, or what was
I
he
don't
doing
know.
with it?
Yeah.
Never found it again?
I don't know.
How did he know
What
how
a
to
creepy
handle
kid.
it?
I know. That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Steal his
It-
alligator.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't tell you more about that
Yeah.
story, but
Yeah.
there's after we're done, I've got an interesting thing about all
Jeez.
that. But yeah,
How's a raccoon as a pet? I feel like they'd be fun, but also kind of gnarly.
they're hard. Yeah,
Really?
Like and it wasn't a pet. Like both of them I raised to like re-release.
Oh, okay.
So
you got them as like little babies.
yeah, they hadn't even opened their eyes yet, and then
They're pretty
just-
cute, huh?
They are
Yeah.
cute,
Yeah.
but they're a lot. That's like I would never recommend unless you like live in a state where it's legal and you have like a ranch or something.
Yeah.
Because they just need a lot of space. They bite. They can carry like some diseases that will literally put you in a coma,
Wow.
make
Really?
you blind. Like they're not
Wow.
an animal that you should mess around with if you don't know what you're doing.
Even if you raise them, they can still carry those diseases.
Yeah, I mean, you can like deworm them and stuff, and it greatly reduces your chances. But they can pick up that parasite at any point. Like if they come into contact with another raccoon,
That's gnarly.
and then they can pass it to you pretty easily. So
There's a lady on Instagram, I think. It might be called like Juniper Fox or something like that, where she has a bunch of foxes, but also I think like skunks and
Yeah.
fucking everything.
well,
in her
foxes
house.
like musk too. They spray this. I mean,
That's right. I always wanted a red fox,
stinks.
but I don't think you can. I
No.
don't think you can have anything in California, but
probably not.
What's the guy's name that Jeff and Ags hangs out with?
the
animal guy?
Tarzan, the real Tarzan.
Oh yeah, real Tarzan. Have you ever
heard of that
guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have.
Any
Is he
story
like
for
a
that
big,
guy?
is he like a big animal guy?
He's the guy who has a tiger. I feel like
I struggle. I really don't. I'm not a big fan of like
I don't even know what
people
he does.
that have all these exotic animals.
It's
I
just
think
pets to him.
It's
Is that what it is?
yeah, they're essentially pets, and it's also like I don't want to like call out anyone specifically, but I just feel like it's kind of like using animals to get internet clout.
Oh, yeah.
you know, and I know not everyone is that way, and I know a lot of them do genuinely care for their animals, but the problem is that people see that and then they want to also get
Emulate that.
like some kind of
Yeah.
big animal.
Because you're showing that it's like normal, even though it's not.
Right. And then you have like a Tiger King person. Or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have someone that like keeps them in like squalor and is terrible to the animals. Or like there was a guy in Ohio, I think in 2011, who had a ton of exotic animals, committed suicide, but before he did, he let them all go.
Oh fuck!
And so like hundreds of tigers and lions and everything
Out in the
were
town?
out in
What did they have to do, kill 'em
town.
all?
Yeah, and so the police just had to go on this like hunt and
God.
kill all these animals.
That's
What
a
a
crazy job
wild
for those
story.
cops.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I remember Mattson and I studied abroad in Prague, and we went to the zoo out there. Everything was, no offense to any Prague listeners, but it's a little janky out
Yeah.
there, okay? And we went to the zoo because we just thought it'd be fun. And we saw like this whole, I don't even know, like a history banner wall thing they had where I guess there was some crazy flood one year. And so all the animals got out because they just kind of floated up and got out.
Yeah.
Same shit. And I'm like, damn, but that in Prague, I don't even know what they would fucking do. They'd probably just like
You have to
hang
just
out
kill
with them,
them all.
honestly, knowing them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the thing, like zoos go through this whole accreditation process. They have all these different standards they have to live up to as far as like giving the animals the amount of like enrichment they need and the right foods and all these different things. And zoos contribute a ton of money to conservation. Like zoos are pretty good in general.
Yeah.
As far as like wildlife conservation goes and inspiring people to care about wildlife. These little roadside zoos
Yeah, the private ones are like,
they're like almost always bad. And so I just like anytime someone's getting famous for like owning tigers or whatever, for me it's like a big red flag. But
yeah, I mean, for sure. The real Tarzan one, it's kind of like a dead giveaway. He's jacked. He's always in like crazy expensive hotel rooms. You're
yeah,
like, it's kind of
they're
like
making
a full
millions
package.
of dollars.
Oh,
I
for
mean,
sure.
millions off of this kind of stuff, and like
Yeah.
they're having celebrities come hold them, and
Yeah.
it's just like I don't know. I'm not a fan personally.
For sure. Yeah.
but
I mean, I don't even.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to look out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't imagine just like having a fucking tiger in my house. Even like a house cat
not a
freaks
good
me
idea.
out.
I know.
Talking about Prague, I thought this is where you're going with it, but there's this bar that was called like the Leopard Bar. And it was
Oh,
like
we never went there though, did we?
yeah, we went there one time. I don't know, whatever. There was like a leopard that would like walk around the top
In the bar.
in the
Yeah.
cage.
That place is
Not
just
great either.
crazy.
Yeah, no.
The cage
that-
just circled the entire.
Yeah,
bar.
yeah. Almost like at Ruby's where they have the trains, you know. But imagine a leopard in there.
Well, like there's that bar in Montana that has like all the hunted
Oh,
polar
Blue Moon?
bears.
Yeah.
and shit.
Blue Moon.
Yeah, like
Blue Moon, I think.
Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is that bad though?
I
Like,
mean, it's
Taxidermy.
like polar bears used to be hunted, and now
Yeah.
now you can't in the U.S. at least. In Russia, you probably still can, but I don't know. Like I grew up hunting, but for me, hunting was like a way to get meat. You
Yeah.
know, it was like I like elk. I think it's delicious. Like you can fill your freezer, and it's like this animal gets to live a really good existence in the wild. You kill it in a really humane way, and you get to like harvest it. And it's like to me, it's like a really neat way to connect with nature. Trophy hunting for me is very complicated. I'm not a fan
Totally.
of that either.
Yeah.
To be honest, like to kill something to put it on your wall is, I don't know. I just don't have that inside me personally.
Yeah, it's a weird ego-driven thing,
Yeah.
probably. I'd imagine. But
I think it's a power thing.
Yeah.
But I have plenty of friends that are trophy hunters that I think are great people.
and it gives back a lot of money, right? I don't know that system very well, but isn't there some sort of fee that
That's kind of that's like the talking point.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been investigations into some of that, and it doesn't always.
Yeah, I
add up.
bet.
And even like grizzly bears, for example, you can trophy hunt a grizzly bear in Alaska or different places, but they've done economic studies that show that live bear brings a lot more money into the community from like, bear watching or whatever than it ever would as like
Interesting.
someone paying 10 grand to
Yeah.
go and shoot it. So I don't know. I work with hunters. I know a lot of hunters. A lot of them are really good people.
Yeah.
But I personally, inside me, I can't kill an animal that I'm not going to eat. It just doesn't feel right. To me.
Yeah.
That's
that makes
like a
sense.
I feel
personal.
that. For the longest time, that was like fishing for me because I never ate fish.
Yeah,
So I always felt weird.
I'm a catch and release fisherman.
I mean, with fly fishing, isn't
We
that
all
kind
draw
of
our
a game?
lines. Yeah. I'm
But,
a fly fisherman too. so,
Nice.
yeah.
I mean, I just personally got into it last summer, I think, right on that float trip.
Yeah.
Colorado was my first time, but it was epic.
Yeah.
So fun.
It
And
is
once
fun.
again, let's get after it when
All
we're
right,
in Montana.
let's do it.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, Missoula is the place for that when it comes to Montana.
Down.
Like
We've only driven
southwestern
through.
Montana is definitely the best part.
Sick.
Yeah.
It's good to
Yeah,
know.
let's
Yeah,
do
we're going
something.
early,
Sure.
aren't we? On
Yeah.
the way up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you
Yeah.
guys let me know.
Yeah, we
if
will.
I'm around, I'd
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
take you guys
I think
fishing.
Forrest is gonna
Yeah.
meet up with us too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
he's got the bug. That dude
Yeah.
loves fishing.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
So yeah.
Yeah, he's very good. It's insane. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
great.
Yeah,
Thanks
we'll
for
definitely
coming by.
chill.
Literally talk bears for hours.
It's good to hear. I mean, it's our first time kind of learning all this stuff.
Yeah.
We just know the basics, I guess. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I learned a lot. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I plug my podcast?
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hit it.
It's called Tooth and Claw. I mentioned it earlier, but it's essentially just me and then my brother and our friend Mike, and they serve to kind of ask questions that anyone else would ask, and then they're also both really funny. So the podcast is all about animal attacks. Each episode we go over a different story, and then we break down why it actually happened, why the animal's behaving the way it did, and how people can avoid those kind of attacks in the future. And then we also talk about the animal's conservation status and
Sick.
some facts, and it's really fun.
That's awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna listen in.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah,
Especially
cool.
the death match.
Yeah, a good place to start. We did a 3-part series on Night of the Grizzlies, which was an attack in the late 60s in Glacier where 2 women were killed the same night by different bears.
Oh, because they were feeding the bears, right?
And it's
heard
a
about
it's a
that.
really crazy story, and we did a 3-parter on it, and that's like a good starting point for people that are wanting to listen. So,
Cool.
Jeez,
yeah.
good call.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Boom.
There we go.